Allison. I have a blog for teachers called Learning at the Primary Pond, and in this video I'm going to teach a complete phonics lesson for first graders from my phonics program, From Sounds to Spelling. And I have a lovely student with me here today. Hey, Erin.
Hi.
So Erin is joining us so that when I'm teaching the lesson, you kind of get that back and forth. It's hard to model lessons for adults. It's a lot of fun and I'm super excited to do this, but it's even harder if you don't have a student. So I am super thankful to have Erin's help today. So thanks for being here. Okay, so I think before we get started, what I want to do is just give you some background. So I know that if you're watching, you may or may not use From Sounds to Spelling. Regardless, I think that you can get some ideas from this lesson, but I want to tell you a little bit about what's happened before this lesson and what's happened after. As you're joining, I would love to know in the comments what grade you teach, just so I can kind of get a sense of who is here and what levels your kiddos might be at right now. And also, if you want to share the specific phonics pattern that you're studying right now, I think that would be great too. I know that if you teach first grade, you may be a little bit beyond blends by this point in the year, depending on when you're watching this, of course. But I hope that the ideas that I'm going to cover in the lesson will be helpful to you in, applying that to whatever skills you are teaching, because many of these routines that I'm going to show you, I do over and over again. So it's not just with blends. These are things that we use to work on short vowels, long vowels. So I hope that this is helpful no matter what you're covering. I see first grade vowel teams. Hey, Kelly, first and second reading interventionist. Hey, Kelly, working on vowel teams. Awesome. So it looks like we're kind of all over the map, but again, I hope that these routines will be helpful to you no matter what you're teaching. Okay, so a little bit of background before we get into the lesson. Erin, my first grade student, she's been working on short vowels. She's already been taught that. She has a high level of mastery, double final consonants, and leading up to this particular lesson, we've been working on other beginning and ending blends. So students are familiar with what a blend is at this point, and we are now moving from beginning blends to working on some specific blends. The blends that we're going to cover in this lesson are MP, and ND, nd. Later in the week, if I was actually teaching this to Erin, we would also cover NCH, nch, which I think technically is a digraph blend, but they're all covered in level 1, week 14 of From Sounds to Spelling. So that's kind of what this week is going to look like. We are doing the day 1 lesson plan. At the end of this lesson, I'm going to also talk about what Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday might look like in terms of instruction, because while this lesson is one that has components that I use frequently throughout the program, and there's like consistency throughout the week, not every single lesson will look like this. So we also do other things that you're not going to see, like decodable text. We do some whiteboard dictation, some word sorts, depending on what week it is. So there's other things that go on that you're not necessarily going to see. This is just one example. Hey, Randy, Roselle, Kelly, ending blends, perfect timing. Molly, teaching silent E, awesome. So I hope this is helpful to you. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I want to cover? So during the lesson, I'm going to kind of switch back and forth between being Mrs. Ryan, putting my teacher hat on, and talking to you all. So just imagine, I'll try to keep the lesson as smooth as possible, but just imagine that sometimes if you've ever seen in one of those TV shows or movies where the characters like freeze frame and then kind of step out and talk to the camera. I can't think of a good example of one now, but that's kind of what's going to go on, because I want to give you a background as well as actually show you what I do with my real students as I teach Erin. So, okay, I think another important thing to know before we dive in is that you can teach this program one-on-one. I teach this program one-on-one with my own reading intervention students. But the intent of the program too is to be taught in a classroom. So, you may be teaching all of this whole group, you may be teaching some whole group and some small group, which is what I recommend if you can pull it off. So the first quick little introduction that I'm going to do with Erin, those are things that we do in a whole group setting. And then we move into some other small group activities. And the reason why I do some of it in small group is so that I can better differentiate. But I'll kind of let you know during the lesson, like, hey, this is whole group, hey, this is small group, so that you can kind of see what the flow would look like if you were in the classroom. Okay. Laura Ann, yes, hopefully, there's no guarantees with technology, but I hope that this will get posted to the page. Fingers crossed. That is my goal. All right. So, Miss Erin, are you ready?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so now what you all are going to see me do is 2 quick whole group activities. We're going to do phonological awareness and then a little bit of review. These go quickly. I try to keep the pace quick. There are things that the kids would know already because we've done them throughout the year. And I think with the phonological awareness, one thing I want you to notice is that the words that we're going to practice are words with final blends. That is intentional. The way From Sounds to Spelling works is that when you're getting ready to teach a skill and while you're teaching that skill, the phonological awareness practice activities lead up to that. So, for example, before we ever started working on blends, the kids were practicing like blending words with blends, no letters involved, just the sounds. Maybe segmenting words with blends. So the phonological awareness work is really intentional and it guides them to be able to do the skills that they're going to be working on in phonics. So just wanted to make that point. All right, I think I'm done talking. All right, let's get into the lesson. So I'm going to have Erin actually model 2 different ways of segmenting and blending. With my little ones that don't have amazing fine motor control quite yet, I do chopping for sounds. So like if it was cat, cat. It might be backwards for you. I don't know with the camera. It's supposed to be left and right, or left to right. So that's what I do with my little ones, right? And then for my kids that have a little bit more like fine muscle motor control, what they do is they tap with their finger. And the nice thing about tapping is that they can then be writing. So if they are spelling the word hat, they can actually tap, again, left to right, don't know what it looks like on the camera, at, hat. They can be tapping with their non-dominant hand and writing with their normal dominant hand. So you're going to see Erin we're going to do blending, I think, with chopping, and then we're going to do segmenting with tapping. However, if I was actually teaching a group of students, we would be doing the same motion for both. I just want to demonstrate both. Okay, now I think I'm done talking. All right, so putting my teacher hat on. All right, Miss Erin, I'm going to say some sounds. Your job is to repeat the sounds and tell me what the mystery word is. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. The sounds are and
And hand.
Good. Okay, listen. Imp.
Imp. Limp.
Good. Listen. Fond.
Fond. Fond.
Good.
Thump.
Good. Crunch.
Crunch.
Good job. All right, so we just used chopping, right? Now we're going to move on to a different phonological awareness activity. And so we did blending, words with blends, ending blends. And now we're moving on to segmenting. She's going to model a different type of breaking up words, but normally it would just be the same, chopping or this. All right, now we're going to do something different. I'm going to say a word and you're going to segment it, okay? Actually, first, after you hear me say the word, you're going to repeat the word and then segment it. This is something that I always do with my kiddos. All right, so the word is dump. Say dump.
Dump. Dump.
Good. Okay, so we moved our fingers across, left to right. All right, the next word is chimp. Say chimp.
Chimp. Chimp.
Good. All right, the next one is pump. Say pump.
Pump. Pump.
Good. Okay, next one is stamp. Say stamp.
Stamp. Stamp.
Okay, I want you to listen. There's 2 sounds at the beginning. St, and, p. Now you do it. Good.
Stamp.
There you go. Okay. The last one is bend. Say bend.
Bend. bend.
Good job. All right, so you might have heard that she actually said stamp for stamp. And the sounds are there, but she put them together. And so what I want kids to know when we're working on blends is that they're actually different sounds, right? So throughout the whole lesson, we're working on the process of hearing each sound in the blend and the process of blending. We're not trying to get the kids to memorize blends. So just a little point about that. All right, so now we're gonna practice some words. The words that we've practiced would be ones that I've taught previously, and I really keep an eye on my time when I do this. I don't necessarily need to get through like a huge stack of flashcards. These just need to be the words that, we've gone over. And so From Sounds to Spelling does have high frequency words, and a lot of times it's kind of coordinated. So if you're working on words with final blends, then your high frequency word might also have a final blend in it. But if you use the program, you can also use your own words. So no big deal about that. So let's just go through some of these words.
Come with what?
Read this one wrong.
For.
For. This says and. Let's tap that one out in our arms. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you want me to do it first? I'll do it first.
Yes.
And. A-N-D. And. Now you do it.
And. A-N-D. And.
Good. What word is this?
And.
Good job. Okay. So that little tapping process, just a side note, that is part of the way that I teach high frequency words. And if it's a word that's really new to kids or they're getting it wrong, then yes, I use that tapping when I teach it. But then when we're reviewing the words, I will still have them tap. I usually have them stand up, but you can do it sitting too. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some letter flashcards with Erin, and we want kids to know, yes, letter names, but especially letter sounds very fluently. And so that means practicing beyond, I don't know if beyond mastery is the right way of saying it, but beyond where the kids know them, right? The purpose of fluency is not so that kids can sit down and read letter sounds super fast on like an assessment, but the purpose is so that when they are reading, they know those sounds so fluently that their brain is freed up to really focus on, okay, well, what word am I reading? What does the text mean? There's just so many things that need to go on in a new reader's brain that they need to know those letter sounds and they need to know them quickly. So this could be letter names that we're practicing. I think let's just do letter sounds today. This is something that in the program, at least, it'll tell you like pull back on this, do less of this once the kids really, really know them well. But it's not something where I can tell you what week you can pull back on because I don't know how your kids are doing. It's just something, even with the high frequency words, where you're deciding like what words do they already know? What do they need more practice with? There's some just like thought and intentionality that goes into this stuff, even though it's those quick things at the beginning of a lesson. All right, let's do sounds.
G. O. Z. K. Y.
Awesome. So we might do more than that. Again, it just depends on what we're working on. All right, so these quick little activities, this is typically if I have things my way and if my schedule is the way I want it to be, which doesn't always happen, I will do those in a whole group setting typically. At this point, then I will move into small group instruction, and I'll usually see 2 groups per day. Again, depending upon how much time I have. In the small group setting, I can differentiate more. So with Erin, I'm going to continue on with this final blends progression. And with another group, I might be doing a skill that's a little bit easier or a little bit more advanced. However, a lot of teachers do teach the whole program from sounds to spelling. And they teach that whole group, and they're having a lot of success doing that. So if you're not able to do a ton of small group, it's totally doable. You can differentiate, and we can talk about that a little bit more at the end. But okay, so cut the whole group, and now we're going into small group. Let's see. So, Erin, we have been practicing consonant blends. What is a consonant blend?
2 letters that have a different sound but are blended together.
Good. Remember our blender of letters that we took out earlier? So yes. I have this like blender thing that I like to show them. All right, so now let's play a game and see if you can guess the blends that we're going to practice today. So this little guessing activity, or it's not really guessing, it's sort of like a looking for patterns activity that I'm going to have her do. I would not do this at the beginning of like a chunk of instruction. So we've been going over blends. She knows what blends are. And so this little, thing where she's looking for patterns is not something I would do typically when I'm introducing a skill. This is just something to kind of like keep things fresh and help them apply what they've already learned to some new types of blends. All right, these words are jump, camp, send, land. Can you guess the blends we're going to work on today?
And
Good. So MP in jump, right? And then camp, MP, so that's one blend. And then we're also going to work on the blends ND, in send and land. Good noticing. Okay, so what do I need to do next? After that, then I would introduce the phonics posters, and I have these for all skills in the program. I also have half pages, which typically works a little better. I have the whole pages printed out here today. And again, the focus here is really on getting kids to blend sounds. I'm not flashing blend flashcards and having them say the sounds, but I want them to be aware that, especially with MP and ND, which can be a little bit tricky, I want them to be aware that there are certain blends that occur frequently in words. And so I might have posters of those displayed. But again, you don't need to have a poster of every single blend that exists because the focus is on blending, not the individual blends themselves. All right, so Miss Erin, in a lot of words, you are going to see the MP blend, and this word is lamp. Do you see the blend at the beginning or the end of the word?
at the end of the word.
Yes, lamp ends in MP. Then we have ND. What is this?
Hand.
Hand. Do you see ND at the beginning or the end of the word?
At the end of the word.
Yeah. Hand ends in ND. Nd. This is a blend that we will see at the end of a word. Okay, so now I'm still small group. Now what I'm going to do is some multisensory writing with Erin. And, in a normal situation, she would have like a paper plate with sand, or she would have a gel bag, or maybe something even more exciting, like if we were doing something special, shaving cream. Not every day. But here, because we are doing this virtually, which some of you actually may be teaching online, what we're going to do is air writing. And air writing, the way I do it, the kids would take their 2 fingers and they would use their whole arm. Sort of hard to see just here in this context, but the reason why we want them to use their whole arm is because that engages their larger muscles, and larger muscles promote memory. So you've probably heard the saying, you never forget how to ride a bike. And the reason why we don't forget how to ride a bike is because that uses our our larger muscles. And so when we're having kids do like some writing or tracing, we want them to use their larger muscles. So that's why instead of this is fine, and we do some of this, especially in, sand or whatever else, but when you can, have them use those bigger muscles. So I'm gonna have Erin extend her arm, and what I tell my kids is we're gonna use our invisible magic paint, our magic spray paint. So take out your invisible paint. All right. So I'm going to say an ending blend, and I want you to repeat it. The blend is mp. Say mp.
Mp.
Okay, what 2 sounds do you hear in mp?
And p.
Good. Okay, so let's write those sounds. Ready? Mp. Mp. Like in lamp, right? All right, now I'm going to say another blend. The blend is nd. Say nd.
Nd.
What sounds do you hear?
And d.
Good. Let's write those sounds. Ready? N. D.
D.
Okay. Nd. And D like in hand, right? So in this particular case, the multisensory writing is a little different because it's not usually multisensory writing. The way I do it is you have one sound and the kids are writing the letter or letters that represent those sounds. In this case, it's a blend, but it's just giving them practice with like, okay, I hear the 2 sounds, I write the 2 sounds. So now we're going to go into more of what is typical in the program for doing multisensory work with sounds. So the first sound is ah. Say ah.
Ah.
What says ah?
O says ah. Ah. O says ah.
There you go. All right. What says, sorry, the sound is eh. Repeat.
Eh.
What says eh?
E says eh.
So she's tracing the letter E. All right. The sound is I. Repeat.
I. I says I.
Good. The sound is Repeat.
U says
Good. So we're reviewing the short vowels just because those tend to be tricky for kids. Some of you that are in long vowel teams too, or just long vowel sounds in general, will see that your kids are starting to confuse short vowels and long vowels because they mastered short vowels, but then once they get into the long vowels, there can be some confusion. So I like to review the vowel sounds a lot. Yes, the multisensory work talked about the blends that we just did, but I like to continue reviewing those short vowel sounds because those are just tricky. All right, now we are going to practice blending with the sounds. When I do this for remote teaching, I actually do this under the document camera. But because I have Erin on the video, I was worried about somehow losing her or me. So instead of connecting my document camera, we're just gonna do the blending board. I got this from Etsy. I don't know if the exact one that I got is still there, but the nice thing is it lets you kind of prop your letters up. Mine is pretty big. This is probably good for a whole group setting. With me, I work like one-on-one or small groups, so I probably didn't need one quite this big, but there's different sizes that you can choose from. And then the program has the smaller letters or the bigger letters. I might use the bigger letters. Again, I just use the smaller letters for my kiddos, for my particular situation. Okay, so we are going to blend some words with blends. And in the program, you'll see that there are cards that have like MP together on them. And the reason for that is because, not because they're one sound, because I treat them as two sounds, but the reason for that is that sometimes when you're setting up the blending drill, it can be a little bit easier to just have the ending blend on that one card. So you just kind of stick it there. Right here, and this is accurate to what I would do if I'm introducing blends for the first time, I just have the separate cards because even though it's a little bit trickier to set up and takes a little more time, I really want to emphasize the fact that these are two separate sounds and they're not just one sound. An example of letters, two letters that would go on one card because they're one sound is a digraph. So like CH, sh, 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 those would always be on one card because they represent one sound. All right, so lots of different ways. Sorry, I feel like I'm giving so many asides here. Lots of different ways to provide support to your kids. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a lot of support to Erin the first time. Normally by this point in the year, she wouldn't need this, but I just want you to be able to see like if your kids need help with this at first, what you can do with them. So, all right. So the first time I'm going to do it, then you're going to see us do it together, and then she's going to do it on her own. And then I'm going to just have her do it on her own after that. All right, my turn. Ramp. Ramp. Let's do it together. Ready? Ramp. Ramp. Okay, now you do it.
Ramp.
Good. Is that a real word?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a real word, like a ramp that you might roll down. Good. Okay. Okay, now you try.
Tamp.
Tamp. Is that a real word?
No.
No, not a real word.
Timp.
Timp. Is that a real word?
No.
No, not a real word. All right, so we would probably do, actually I shouldn't have C up there. We would probably do a couple of these with MP. I think we're gonna move on to ND. I would try to make sure that the kids get some examples of words that are real, but it is okay to have nonsense words as long as you acknowledge the fact that they are nonsense words. And if you have students that are English language learners, you might not want to ask them if it's a real word. You just might want to tell them, hey, this is not a real word. All right, now let's work with the ND blend. Ready?
D. Send.
Good. So we would do a couple more. I'd be flipping, the vowel or changing the first letter, but we're just going to stop here. And the amount of time you spend on this kind of depends on how long it takes. If you're teaching kindergarten, your kids might need a lot more support. So you might have to say the sounds in blend and then they do it. Or you might have to say the sounds in blend, then you do it together, and then they do it. So the amount of time you spend on this depends on a few things. The age of your kids, how much support they need, and also if you notice that the kids are struggling, then you want to spend a little more time on it. But generally, you're just spending a couple of minutes. And at the end here, I am going to go over how long generally each part takes, because I know that as we're doing it together and I'm kind of talking about what we're doing, the timing is not quite spot on. So I'll talk about timing at the end. All right. Okay, so now we are going to make some words. So I'm going to pass out my magnetic letters or tiles or whatever I'm using, and I'm also going to have my own. Okay, a little bit harder to do. Obviously if you're in the classroom, you can have a board that's standing up, but I will have my own set. All right, so we're going to build some words with ending blends. First, let's make the word camp. Say camp.
Camp.
It can be fun to camp outside. All right, now let's pound the syllables in camp. Camp. How many syllables?
1.
Good. Okay, now let's segment it together. Ready? Camp. Now build it. So I don't know how well you're gonna, yeah, that's perfect, Erin. So Erin's gonna build the word, and all the kiddos will be building their word at the same time if you're doing it in a group. And the amount of support, when we're working on a skill right off the bat, I will make sure that we segment words together. This is the first day that we're working on blends with MP and ND. And so for pretty much all of those, I may not demonstrate it, but for pretty much all of those, I would have a segment as a group to provide that support. Because otherwise what I find is kids might think they know how to spell it, but they're leaving out sounds. So we're going to segment it together. All right. Okay, so now I don't tell Erin if she's got it right or not. What we're going to do is we're going to check it. So I should have made mine. Sorry. Just talking over here. So I may or may not make the word on my own board. The downside of making it is that the kids will see if they've got it right or not immediately. The reason why I'm making it right now is because I want to show you the process of what we do after we made the word to check the sound. So, all right, let's say and touch the sounds together. You ready, Erin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Camp. What word did we make?
Camp.
What's the blend in this word?
And
how do we spell that?
MP.
Yeah, MP is the blend. Is it at the beginning or the end of the word?
At the end of the word.
Good. What's the vowel sound in this word?
A.
A. What says A?
A.
Good. What says K in this word?
Letter C.
Yeah, C. And we talked before, the reason why it's a C and not a K is because we've got the A after, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now let's leave camp on our boards and change it to a new word. So we're going to change just one letter, and our new word is damp. Say damp.
Damp.
Damp means a little bit wet. Okay, so let's pound the syllables. Ready? Damp. Okay, now let's say the sounds. D. Damp. Good. Okay. So take camp and turn it into damp. Okay, let's say and tap. Ready? So she's going to do it on her board.
Damp.
Because I just saw Tiffany's question. Yes, the am glued sound, I think what I call it in the program is a sticky sound. Different dialects will glue the sounds of AM together more or less. And so if I feel like that's an issue for the student that I'm working with, then instead of using a word with A, then I will just use a word with I. But you kind of know what the dialect is that your kids speak. And it really does depend, because I know that like in the US, the Northeast, I feel like maybe glues them together a little bit more. Do you think, Erin? Because you kind of lived up there.
Yes. Yeah, we kind of make it just one. We would always put it together instead of separating it out.
Yeah, I think with most dialects, there's some degree of stickiness, is what I call it. Not as glued in the way I say it as like ing, ang, ong. Those are truly glued together, but in my experience, it does kind of depend on the dialect a little bit. All right, so let's see. We tap the sounds. All right, so now I would probably have Erin make a couple more words. Sometimes we do it like this, like I'm showing you. So we made camp, and then we turned it to damp, and then I would have her do, think about ramp, and then cramp would be adding a C at the end. I don't always have that sequence. Sometimes they just need to be separate words, but sometimes we do a sequence of words like that. All right, now we're gonna make a new word. You ready, Erin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll let her clear her board. And we just did MP, now we're gonna talk about ND. All right, the word is mend. Say mend.
Mend.
Okay, to mend something means to fix it, like if you're mending clothes. You shouldn't say mending, by the way, so just say that. Just say the base word, mend. All right, mend. Say mend.
Mend.
I need to mend this shirt. Let's pound the syllables. Mend.
Mend.
Okay, let's tap the sounds.
D. Mend.
Okay, make mend. Okay, let's tap the sounds.
D. Mend.
Good. And then just kind of as a side note too, some of the words, at least in the program, are intentionally chosen to be vocabulary words, so you can get in a little bit of vocabulary. Like she's hearing me say the word in a sentence and explain what it means, especially if it's going to be an unfamiliar word. But in the program, you can also use the optional vocabulary posters to kind of focus in more on certain words for the week. So maybe mend would be a word, because that's, something that's likely to be a little bit less familiar to kids. But just a little side note there. All right, so after that, I would have Erin make send, sand, stand. You heard me ask her a few questions about the first word we made, and I might ask her a few questions about mend, but I don't ask her all those questions like, what says what's the vowel, all that stuff. I don't ask those questions about every single word, because that would take forever. All right. So that is the end of our lesson. We've gone on 37 minutes, it looks like, but if I were teaching this in, like a real setting, we would probably do phonological awareness for 2 or 3 minutes. We do some high frequency words and sound review for maybe 3 minutes. The introduction where I had like the posters, that would probably take about 3 minutes. It could take a little longer depending on, if this was the first time that we were ever doing blends. Let's see what else. So then multisensory writing could be 3 or 4 minutes. Blending practice, when I had this out, would probably be about 3 or 4 minutes. And then we did word building, and let's just say that takes 5 minutes. So the total time would be about 20 to 25 minutes if I had a group of kids that was in front of me instead of my lovely student, Erin. So I know that's sometimes hard to tell when you're, because I was inserting comments left and right. But also to recap, the phonological awareness and review was done whole group, but the other things were done in a small group setting. But you can absolutely teach from sounds to spelling in a whole group if that's something you need to do. Let's say that I ran out of time though, right? Or I knew that I wasn't going to have 20 or 25 minutes. I would have to eliminate something, right? So instead of, let's say we're doing in the classroom sand writing, I could do that air writing just like I did with Erin, because that's a little bit quicker. In the classroom, I do like to include gel bags or sand writing or some other kind of actual multisensory material. But if I have a time crunch, then I can do air writing instead. They can also do table writing, or they can even do handwriting. They can write on their hands, right? Any sort of thing that involves like saying the sounds and the letters and touching, that's multisensory because it uses more than one sense. All right, so let's say that Erin and Erin's group just got this little lesson. And then they're going to do some independent practice. They may or may not do it depending on what like rotation they are. But if you wanted to have them do some independent practice after this lesson, which could be the same day or it could be tomorrow, it doesn't literally have to be that the kids go off and do more practice. But the first and second grade versions of the program have suggested activities that you can have the kids do after lesson 1, after lesson 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday because it could be those days, but it might not be. I really recommend taking the program and pacing it at what your kids need rather than just going through at a rote pace. All right, so let's say that Erin and I just did this, and so then she would have some MP and ND words that would be on a list or on cards. One thing she could do is practice reading them. She could practice making them with magnetic letters, letter cards, stamps, letter beads, Play-Doh, and then I have here on the little menu for you some phonics games and activities that she could do to practice these sounds. So it kind of lays out for you, like after you teach a lesson, these are some things that the kids might be able to do, and you can tell that there's some, I don't know if you can see that small, but some things are the same throughout the week, but then some things are different to give them that variety without overwhelming you or them and creating tons of stuff to prep. So I think one last thing I want to share is just kind of what would happen after this lesson. So like I said, not every lesson looks like this. The blending, the, multisensory writing, the making words, those are in a lot of lessons, and the flow from week to week is more or less consistent. But there are other things that we do. So on Tuesday, if I was going to come back tomorrow with Erin, we still do phonological awareness and review. I introduce high frequency words on Tuesdays in level 1 of the program, or day 2 of the week. And I do that whole group. I just find that it's easier to introduce high frequency words in a whole group setting, but you can totally do that small group as well. On Tuesday or tomorrow, I would have the kids break up some multisyllabic words, just 2-syllable words at this point. Words that have ending blends, MP and ND, 2-syllable words, because the kids are not necessarily in their reading only reading 1-syllable words. They're going to encounter 2-syllable words, so they need to know, or they need to learn how to take that knowledge of, hey, I know the MP and ND blend, and apply it not just to 1-syllable words, but also to 2-syllable words. On Tuesday, I do some whiteboard dictation, and then the kids would read a decodable text. Normally, it's not a poem, but sometimes it is a poem. And so Sand Flea is about a little girl who covers herself up in sand, and there's all kinds of words in the little poem that have the ND and MP ending blends. Later in the week, we would be reading a little informational text, also decodable, and contains lots of ND, MP, and then by that point, we'd also be working on NCH, which is, I think, a digraph blend. So Monday, Tuesday, we're doing MP, ND. Wednesday, I introduce NCH. And on Wednesday, we more or less follow a similar structure as what I just showed you here. But I think that day we're doing a word sort. And then on Thursday and Friday, we're comparing MP, ND, NCH. I guess Thursday is when I do the word sort. And then on Friday, I will do an assessment, which is kind of like a spelling test, but not exactly. What I really want to see, it's a dictation is what I call it. And not that I made up that word, but it is a dictation. And you're having the kids write different words with MP and ND blends. They're writing a couple sentences. So at that point, if the kids have mastered to a level of 80% is what I look for. If they've got MP and ND down and NCH down with 80% accuracy, then I feel comfortable moving on. Now that's not perfection, right? So it's really important to come back in future weeks and, have the kids practicing words with MP and ND. From Sounds to Spelling has that kind of like built-in review that's really intentional. But if they've got 80% mastery, then, I feel comfortable moving on. If I don't feel comfortable moving on, that's okay. I don't have to stick to the program exactly the way it's laid out. I just come back, we read more words with blends. We, practice making more words, more dictations. So we just do more of what we've already been doing. And then I can hopefully see where the areas of weakness are so I can really target those, do them for a couple days, see how the kids are doing, and go from there. All right. I think that's all I wanted to share. That was a lot. Also, too, if you have from sounds to spelling or you're thinking about it, just know that the program also includes independent games and activities for the kids to play and do on their own. Because I know that with a lot of phonics programs, at least the ones that I'd used, you don't get that stuff, right? You might have activities for the kids to do together with you, but then they need that independent practice. They need to review. So from sounds to spelling also includes all of that so that they can practice everything they have been learning. In this post, hopefully this showed up, I put a code. I think the code is FebSale21 is what I believe I set it to be. If you go to FromSoundsToSpelling.com and put in that code, now through February 22nd, 2021, you'll be able to get $25 off. But if you do have questions about the program, feel free to ask them. I will try to come back and I'll answer some questions now that I may have missed, and then I will come back and answer any questions later as well. Okay, let's see what questions I missed. Courtney, yeah, so a 1-week lesson plan example, if you go to FromSoundsToSpelling.com, I'll put the little URL in there, and you go to free, there's an entire 1 week so that whether you're using the program or not, you can kind of see how it goes, and that 1 week will more or less show you like what a typical week looks like, although there is some variation. Okay, thank you, Jenny, I appreciate that. Sometimes it's hard to teach lessons with an adult. Super appreciate Erin being here. That's awesome, Jackie. Good, Kelly, I'm so glad it's working well with your small groups. Just scrolling up to see what questions I may have missed. Thank you, Maria, for sharing the name of the program. Yeah, so Tiffany said, I like the way you do syllables and also segment because the skills can be easily mixed up by kids. So you may have noticed that when Erin and I were building those words, I had her pound a syllable first. And the reason for that is because by this point in the year, I would have taught Erin, you know, how to break up words into syllables for phonological awareness, but also we even have been writing some 2-syllable words, just simple words, you know, like, I don't know, what's an example? Batman, right? They can spell bat, they can spell man, so they can spell Batman, but they need to be listening for the syllables and then the sound. So even though it was just 1-syllable words today, I'd already been in the habit of having the kids pound the syllables, so that's why I had her pound them. All right, let's see. So Lauren says, so you would focus more on the sounds more than knowing the letter. I know you commented earlier, and I'm sorry I missed it. So definitely I want them to know the letter names. However, if you think about letter sounds versus letter names, letter sounds are what give kids that reading power, right? When we pick up a book, we're not reading T-H-E-A-M-E. Letter names are useful, I think, but I feel like it's more important for them to know the sounds. In US culture, we do tend to teach letter names first. That's just kind of how it works. I believe in the UK, though, they actually teach sounds first. And when I taught in Spanish, I taught the letter sounds in Spanish first because that's just what worked for the kids. That's what got them reading more quickly. So yes, I feel like the sounds hold more power. All right, let's see. Oh, good. Emmy says, side note, I'm in quarantine and I had a sub in and she was able to pick up these lesson plans and seamlessly implement the lesson. Yay, that makes me so happy. I know that sometimes, you know, I write everything out. Everything I did is written out. I like to be able to demonstrate the lesson though, because for me, I love learning from other teachers. I love being able to go in and see what they're actually doing. But I'm super glad to hear that she was able to just walk in, pick it up and teach, because that's exactly my intent. Okay, Mariama says, what if you have a student that keeps omitting the beginning sounds when blending? What's the best way to approach that? So, where did my whiteboard go? I thought I brought my whiteboard. Here it is. So what I would try, Mariam, and I don't know if this will exactly help the issue, but I believe it's called successive blending. So if we're just going to do dog, right, which is a CVC word, I'm guessing, Mariama, what you're saying is that instead of dog, she'll just say og. And so her brain is not yet retaining all of those sounds. So one thing that will help is just fluency. The faster she can produce the letter sounds, the faster she'll be able to, or the more easily she'll be able to blend. But with this, what you can do is have them blend just the first two sounds. So da, dog, dog. So we, instead of doing dog, we blended the first two, da, dog, and then we added one more. So in that example, we're only really blending like two things at a time, so it's less for her brain to hang onto, so to speak. So I hope that helps. Try that out, Mariana. Let me know if it works. Kathleen, the code, I think it's Feb Sale 21 is what I set it to be. Hopefully it's in the little post here too. Awesome, MB. I'm so glad this was helpful. I know it's always a little different without kiddos, but I'm glad that it was what you needed. All right, well, I'm going to go back and answer questions, so feel free to keep typing them. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I do hope this was helpful. The code will work through February 22nd, so if you have any questions, leave a comment there or message me or email me. Happy to talk you through it and help you figure out if From Sounds to Spelling would be a good fit for you. I know that we have teachers in all sorts of unique situations right now, so happy to talk that through if you're not quite sure. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.